A 4-year-old street urchin finds a millionaire tied to a pole with a sign reading, "Child Thief," but discovers the truth and something you won't believe happens. Watch until the end. You won't regret it. Comment on what you think will happen. Your opinion is very important. And subscribe to my channel to support my work. Your help is very important. The biting chill of the early morning in upstate New York made Lily shrink her thin shoulders inside the worn jacket she'd found on a park bench 3 days before. At 4 years old, she already knew every cracked paving stone in Central Park, every bench where she could rest, every trash can where she found leftover food. Her bare feet were used to the icy stones in winter, just as her small hands knew exactly how to ask passers-by for coins with the sweetest possible look. That morning in July, however, something different caught her attention. A man was tied to a lamppost in the middle of the park, unconscious, with a sign hanging around his neck. Lily approached slowly, as she did with everything unfamiliar on the streets. The man wore clothes that were once elegant, a grey suit torn in several places, scuffed leather shoes, a white shirt stained with dirt and dried blood. The sign swayed in the cold wind. Lily couldn't read, but she recognized some letters that her grandma Delia had tried to teach her before she passed away. The large letters seemed to shout something bad, something that made people stop, look with disgust, and hurry on. The man's face was swollen, with a cut on his lip and a purple bruise around his left eye. His graying hair was disheveled, and he was breathing with difficulty. Lily guessed he must be about the age her grandpa would have been if he were still alive, around 50. The girl looked around. The park was almost empty at that hour, just a few vendors opening their stalls and 1 or 2 people hurrying to work. No one paid attention to the tied-up man, as if he were part of the scenery or something they preferred to ignore. The memory of Grandma Delia's sweet voice echoed in her mind. "Lily, honey, always help those who are suffering, even when you are suffering too. Kindness is the only thing they can never take from us." With small, nimble fingers, used to untying garbage bags in search of food, Lily began to work on the knots in the rope. The man was tied with thick cords that hurt his wrists, leaving red marks on his skin. The knots were complicated, made by someone who wanted to be sure he wouldn't get out of there. As she worked, Lily murmured softly the song she sang to herself in moments of fear. "Little bird flew, flew, far away from pain, found, found, a place of love." It was a song she had invented mixing pieces of melodies she heard from the radios of shops. The man moaned softly and opened his eyes slowly. When he saw the little girl trying to untie him, his eyes filled with tears. "No, little one," he murmured with a hoarse voice. "You can't. It's dangerous for you to be near me." Lily stopped and looked directly into his eyes. There was something there she recognized. The same pain she saw in the water of the fountain when she looked at herself. It was the pain of someone who had lost everything and didn't understand why. "You're hurt," she said with her thin voice. "Grandma Delia always said that hurt people need care." "Your grandma was wise," the man replied, trying to smile despite the pain. "But I'm a bad person. At least that's what everyone thinks." "You look like my grandpa Sam," Lily said, going back to work on the knots. "He also got sad when people said bad things about him." The last knot came undone, and the ropes fell to the ground. The man rubbed his sore wrists, trying to get the circulation back. His hands were shaking, not just from the cold, but from something deeper. "What's your name, little one?" "Lily. And yours?" "Valentine," he replied, looking nervously around. "Lily, you need to go. If someone sees you with me—" "No one's watching," she said. "And I know a place where you can hide." Valentine tried to stand up, but his legs failed him. The girl held his arm with her little hands, offering all the support she could. Together, they walked slowly to an abandoned warehouse behind the farmer's market, a place Lily knew well, where she sometimes slept when the park got too dangerous. The warehouse smelled of old wood and dampness, but it was protected from the wind. Valentine sat down in a corner, leaning his back against the cold wall. His elegant clothes contrasted with the decaying environment, but he seemed grateful for the temporary safety. "Why did you help me?" he asked, watching the little girl who had risked everything for a stranger. Lily sat down next to him, her big dark eyes reflecting a wisdom that shouldn't exist in someone so young. "Because when you're alone and hurt, you need someone who sees that you're still a person." The girl's words echoed in the silent warehouse, charged with a truth that hit Valentine hard. For the first time in days, he didn't feel completely lost. But outside, the sound of people searching echoed in the distance, and fear took hold of his eyes again. The footsteps approached the warehouse, accompanied by angry voices. Valentine shrank against the wall, his eyes wide with terror. Lily, with the agility of someone who lived on the streets, ran to a small opening between the boards and peered out. 3 men walked through the market yard, looking under tarps and behind parked trucks. One of them held a piece of paper and showed it to the others, gesturing angrily. "He has to be around here," said the tallest, a man with a grey beard. "Someone saw them leave the park." "If he ran, things will get worse for him," replied another, kicking an empty can. "What we did was nothing compared to what he deserves." Lily returned to Valentine, who was trembling not only from the cold. She put her finger to her lips, asking for silence, and the two remained motionless until the voices faded completely. "They're gone," whispered the girl. Valentine ran his hands over his face, trying to organize his thoughts. The physical pain was intense, but the pain in his chest, that feeling of having lost everything, was much worse. "Lily," he said with a choked voice, "you shouldn't be here. If they find out you helped me—" "They won't find out," she replied, with the confidence of someone who had learned to survive in the shadows. "I know how to become invisible." The girl got up and began to rummage through the corners of the warehouse. She found some old cloths and a half-gallon of water. She wet one of the cloths and returned to Valentine. "Let me clean your wounds," she said, bringing the cloth to his face carefully. Valentine closed his eyes when he felt the delicate touch of the girl cleaning the dried blood from his lip. It was such a gentle, so pure gesture that made his tears flow again. "Why are you crying?" asked Lily, stopping cleaning. "It's been a long time since someone took care of me," he replied. "My own family, they believed the lies." "What lies?" Valentine took a deep breath. How to explain to a 4-year-old the complexity of what he was experiencing? How to tell her that his whole life had collapsed in a matter of days? "Some people invented nasty stories about me. They said I did bad things with children like you." Lily frowned, trying to understand. "But you didn't do anything bad to me. You didn't even know me, and you were worried about me." The simplicity of the child's logic touched Valentine deeply. "It's true. I would never hurt a child. I have 2 children. Had," he corrected himself, his voice breaking. "Now they don't want to talk to me anymore." "My parents also left," said Lily, sitting down next to him again. "But not because they wanted to. It was because of the accident." "I'm sorry, little one. Grandma Delia said that sometimes people go away from us, but the love they left behind is always here." She tapped her chest. "Do you still love your children?" "Very much." "Then they are still your children. They're just confused." The unexpected wisdom of the girl made Valentine smile for the first time in days. "You're very smart, Lily. Grandma always said that. She said that when you lose everything, it becomes easier to see what really matters." During the rest of the morning, Lily left the warehouse a few times to get food. She knew the vendors' schedules. She knew which baker sometimes gave day-old bread, which fruit seller left aside some bruised fruit. She always returned with small treasures, a piece of bread, a mashed banana, a bottle of water. "You shouldn't be spending your food on me," protested Valentine when she offered half a French roll. "We share," she said simply. "That's how it works when someone takes care of us." As they ate, Valentine began to tell his story. He talked about his custom furniture company, about how he had worked 30 years to build everything he had. He told about Stella, his wife, a piano teacher with delicate hands and a sweet smile, about Chris, his eldest son, who worked with computers, and Patty, the youngest, who had just graduated in law. "It was a good life," he said, looking at his own calloused hands. "We weren't rich, but it was an honest life, until everything started to crumble. What happened? Someone put bad things on my computer. Terrible photos involving children. When the investigation started, other people appeared saying that I had done horrible things. Lies, all lies, but well told." Lily listened attentively, even without fully understanding the gravity of the situation. "My wife kicked me out of the house. My children stopped talking to me. The neighbors started looking at me with disgust. In a week, I lost everything." "And who did this to you?" Valentine was silent for a moment. "I suspect someone, but I have no way to prove it." The sound of an engine approaching made them both silent. Lily ran to the opening and saw a pickup truck stop in front of the market. A man in a suit got out of the vehicle, looked around, and entered the establishment. "There's someone different out there," she whispered. "A man in nice clothes." Valentine crawled to the opening and peered out. When he saw who it was, his face paled. "Oswald," he murmured, clenching his fists. "Who's Oswald?" "My former partner, the man I think did all this to me." Lily looked again. Oswald Ferrer was a 45-year-old man, well-dressed, with hair combed with gel and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He talked animatedly with the owner of the market, gesturing and laughing as if he were the happiest man in the world. "He looks happy," observed the girl. "Of course he is," replied Valentine bitterly. "He's probably already preparing to take over my company." Oswald left the market carrying a bag and headed to the truck. Before entering the vehicle, however, he stopped and looked directly at the warehouse. For a moment that seemed eternal. His eyes were fixed on the opening where Valentine and Lily were hiding. The former partner smiled, a cruel and satisfied smile, nodded slightly in the direction of the warehouse, and got into the truck. "He saw us," said Valentine, the terror returning to his eyes. "What do we do now?" asked Lily, holding his hand. Before Valentine could answer, they heard the sound of several cars approaching quickly. The cars stopped with a screech of tires on the gravel. Lily pulled Valentine to the back of the warehouse, where there was an opening in the back, covered by an old tarp. It was her secret escape route, discovered months ago when she needed to escape from a drunk man who had been chasing her. "This way," she whispered, lifting the tarp. Valentine, still weak and sore, crawled through the narrow opening. Outside, they heard loud voices and heavy footsteps entering the warehouse. "He was here!" someone shouted. "You can still smell him! Search every corner!" "He can't have gone far." Lily led Valentine through a tortuous path between the houses in the neighborhood, passing through abandoned yards and narrow alleys that only she knew. The older man stumbled constantly, his heavy breathing echoing in the cold morning air. "I can't anymore," he murmured, stopping, leaning against a wall. "Yes, you can," said Lily firmly. "Just like I did when I ran away from the shelter." "You ran away from a shelter?" "Two," replied the girl, pulling him again. "They wouldn't let me draw, and they wanted to cut my hair. Grandma always said that my hair was like Mom's." They reached a small and poorly maintained house on the outskirts of the city. The paint on the walls was peeling, and several roof tiles were broken. Lily knew every abandoned house in upstate New York, and that one had been empty for months. "Mrs. Craig used to live here," she explained, forcing a back window, "but she went to live with her daughter in Albany." The interior of the house was covered in dust and cobwebs. Old furniture was piled up in the living room, covered by dirty sheets. But it was dry and warm, protected from the biting wind blowing outside. Valentine collapsed on an old sofa, exhausted. His strength was at its limit, and the pain in his chest had worsened with the effort of the escape. "My medicine," he murmured, bringing his hand to his chest. "I need my blood pressure medicine." Lily knelt beside him, worried. Valentine's face was pale and sweaty despite the cold. "Where's the medicine?" "At home. But I can't go back there." The girl thought quickly. She knew the symptoms of sick people on the streets. She had seen other older men get sick like that. "I'm going to get help," she said. "No!" Valentine grabbed her arm. "If someone finds out where I am, I know someone who can help. Mrs. Peterson, she lives near the church. She always gave medicine to Grandma when she got sick." Valentine hesitated, but the pain in his chest was getting worse. "Are you sure you can trust her?" "Yes, she's as good as Grandma was." The girl left through the back window and disappeared among the narrow streets. Valentine was alone in the silent house, fighting waves of pain and despair. How had his life come to that point? 3 weeks ago, he was a respected businessman, married for 25 years, the father of 2 children who admired him. Now he was hiding in an abandoned house, depending on the kindness of a 4-year-old girl who lived on the streets. Tears came without warning, tears of anger, frustration, and fear. Fear of dying there alone, fear of never seeing his family again, fear that Oswald would completely destroy everything he had worked for. Lily returned 40 minutes later, accompanied by a short, chubby lady with white hair tied in a bun. Mrs. Peterson carried a cloth bag full of bottles and herbs. "Is this the man you told me about?" she asked, observing Valentine with experienced eyes. "Yes, Mrs. Peterson, he has chest pain and needs medicine." The lady approached Valentine, who tried to pull away. "Calm down, son," she said in a soft voice. "I didn't come here to judge you. I came because Lily asked me to help someone who is suffering." She examined Valentine quickly, checking his pulse and observing his breathing. "High blood pressure," she diagnosed, "and a lot of stress. I have some teas here that will help you, and some pills I got from the pharmacist." "How did you get the medicine?" "I said they were for me," replied Mrs. Peterson with a mischievous smile. "Joaquin at the pharmacy has known me for 30 years. He wouldn't question it." While preparing the tea in a thermos she had brought, the lady chatted naturally. "Lily told me your story. She said you are being accused of things you didn't do. And do you believe it?" Mrs. Peterson stopped stirring the tea and looked directly at him. "Son, I raised 7 children and have 15 grandchildren. I can recognize a good man when I see one. And anyone who awakens the protection of this girl cannot be bad." Valentine drank the hot tea, feeling the liquid warm his chest and calm his nerves. The medicines began to take effect, and his breathing became easier. "Thank you," he said, emotional. "I don't know how I'll repay you." "You don't need to repay anything. You just need to get well to take care of Lily." "I can't take care of anyone. I can barely take care of myself." Mrs. Peterson smiled and looked at Lily, who was organizing some old cloths to make an improvised bed. "This girl lost her parents 2 years ago. Since then, she's been living on the streets, refusing to go to shelters. They've tried to take her several times, but she always escapes." "Why?" "Because she's looking for a real family, not just a place to sleep. And the way she looks at you, I think she's found it." Valentine watched Lily working. The girl hummed softly while arranging the space, trying to make that cold and abandoned place more welcoming. "She deserves much more than I can offer," he murmured. "Maybe," agreed Mrs. Peterson, "but at the moment, you have each other, and sometimes that's enough to survive." The lady left a bag with basic foods and more medicines. Before leaving, she gave Lily a tight hug. "If you need me, send a message through Joaquin at the pharmacy," she said, "and be careful. I heard that people are spreading your photo around town, offering money for information." After Mrs. Peterson left, Lily and Valentine were alone in the silent house. The girl had managed to light a small fire in an old can, using papers and dry twigs she had found in the yard. "Lily," said Valentine, watching the flames dance, "you shouldn't be here with me. It's too dangerous." "Where would I go?" "To a shelter. To a family that can take care of you properly. The girl stopped stirring the fire and looked at him with her big, serious eyes. I've already tried family. After Grandma died, they took me to the house of some relatives. They only wanted the government money. They didn't care if I ate or if I was cold. And the shelters? In the shelters, we're just a number. No one remembers your name. No one cares if you're sad or scared. Valentine felt his chest tighten again, but this time it wasn't high blood pressure. But with me, you're in danger. Lily approached and sat down next to him on the old sofa. Do you know what the difference is, Mr. Valentine? What? With you, I'm not alone. Outside, the wind shook the trees, and in the distance, they could hear the sound of sirens echoing through the city. The sirens passed by the street without stopping, but the sound made Valentine and Lily tense for hours. The girl had curled up next to him on the sofa, and the two remained silent until nightfall, when they finally felt safe enough to talk again. On the other side of town, in the house that once was Valentine's home, Stella Craig walked nervously through the living room, holding a cup of tea that had gone cold long ago. At 48 years old, she maintained the elegant posture of someone who had taught piano for over 20 years. But her hands trembled slightly, and there were dark circles under her brown eyes. The house was too quiet. Without Valentine's heavy footsteps climbing the stairs after work, without his voice calling her from the kitchen, without the sound of the television he liked to watch at the end of the day. Even the piano, her usual refuge, remained closed for days. The phone rang, making her jump. It was Patty, her youngest daughter. "Mom, how are you?" "I'm fine, honey," lied Stella, trying to keep her voice steady. "Chris told me that more people showed up at the company today, people investigating Dad's computers." "I know." Stella sat down heavily in an armchair. "The lawyer called earlier." "Mom, I've been thinking a lot about all this. Patty, I don't want you to torture yourself with this situation. Your father made choices, and now he needs to face the consequences. But what if he didn't, Mom? What if it's all lies?" Stella closed her eyes. It was the question that haunted her every night, that made her wake up sweating and with her heart racing. "Patty, the evidence could have been planted. I know it sounds crazy, but, Mum, he's my father. I've known him for 22 years. He never—" "I also thought I knew him," interrupted Stella, but her voice sounded less convinced than she expected. "Mum, do you remember how he was when he found that lost girl in the mall last year? He didn't leave her side until her parents arrived. Remember how he always helped the neighborhood kids with their homework? How he cried when he found out that Mr. Jones's son was sick?" Each word of Patty's was like a stone falling into Stella's stomach. She remembered all of that. She remembered how Valentine always had a special affection for children, how he dreamed of having grandchildren, how his gentle hands had never hurt anyone in 25 years of marriage. "Honey, I can't think about this now. Mom, what if he's suffering? What if he needs help?" Stella hung up the phone and went to the room she had shared with Valentine for so many years. His clothes were still in the closet. His medicines were still on the nightstand. She'd asked him to leave, but she hadn't been able to get rid of his belongings. She picked up a bottle of high blood pressure medicine. It was almost empty. Valentine always forgot to take his medications when he was stressed, and now, wherever he was probably without them. Her mind went back to the last conversation they had before everything collapsed. He'd arrived from work agitated, talking about problems at the company, about Oswald showing up again after 3 years. "That man will try something, Stella. I know he will. He never forgave me for kicking him out of the partnership." "Valentine, you're paranoid. Oswald moved on with his life." "No, you don't understand. He looked at me in a way as if he were planning some revenge." At the time, Stella had thought her husband was exaggerating. But now, recalling the conversation, a terrible doubt began to grow in her chest. The next day, she made a decision she had been avoiding for weeks. She put on her best business suit, combed her hair carefully, and headed to Valentine's company office. Cordero Furniture was located in a commercial building downtown. It was a modest but prosperous company that Valentine had built brick by brick over 30 years. When Stella arrived, she found unusual activity in the place. Oswald Ferrer was in the main office, sitting in the chair that had always been Valentine's, giving orders to the employees. He had gained a little weight in the 3 years since he had left the company, and he wore an expensive suit that contrasted with the simple environment of the office. "Stella," he exclaimed with a broad smile when he saw her. "What a pleasant surprise." "Oswald." She kept her voice cold. "What are you doing here?" "Well, someone needs to take care of business while Valentine is indisposed. The clients are worried, the suppliers want answers. I came to help." "Nobody asked for your help." Oswald's smile faltered slightly. "Stella, I understand that you are going through a difficult time. It must be terrible to discover that the man you lived with all these years—" "Be careful what you say," she interrupted, feeling the anger growing. "I just wanted you to know that I've always had a special affection for you. If you need anything, the only thing I need is for you to get out of my husband's company." "Ah, but you see, Stella, technically the company is no longer just his. With the investigations, the assets were frozen, and I, as a former partner, have rights." Stella left the office before she could say something she would regret. But the conversation had planted a seed of suspicion that grew all the way back home. That night she called Chris, her eldest son. "Chris, I need you to do me a favor." "Sure, Mom. What is it? Can you take a look at your father's computer? The old one he left at home?" "Mom, the investigation already took all his computers." "Not all. There's an old notebook in the office at home that he used for personal work. No one knows it exists." Chris hesitated. "Mom, are you sure you want to do this? If we find bad things, I need to know the truth, Chris. One way or another." 2 hours later, Chris was at his parents' house, examining Valentine's old computer. It was a simple device, which his father used mainly to make budgets at home and browse the internet. "I found something strange," he said after a while. "What?" "Mom, this computer has been hacked. There are traces of remote access, programs installed without authorization. Someone had total control of this machine for months." Stella felt the world spin around her. "Is there any way to know who it was?" "I'll need more time, but—" "Mum, if this computer was hacked, it's very likely that the others at the company have been too. It means that someone could have planted anything on those computers, including the evidence that incriminated Dad." Stella collapsed into a chair, her legs too weak to support her. "My God, Chris, what have I done?" "You didn't know, Mom. I kicked him out of the house. I didn't let him explain himself. I believed the accusations without even listening to what he had to say. There's still time to fix it." "Is there? He could be anywhere. He could be hurt, sick. Chris, he was without his blood pressure medicine." The guilt that Stella had tried to repress for weeks finally came to the surface. She cried as she hadn't cried since her mother's passing years ago. She cried for the injustice, for the lack of faith, for the lost time. "Mom, we're going to find him," promised Chris, hugging her, "and we're going to prove he's innocent." While mother and son hugged in the silent house on the other side of town, in the abandoned house, Lily covered Valentine with an old blanket she had found in a closet. The man slept restlessly, murmuring names in his dreams. "Stella, Chris, Patty," he whispered. The girl sat down next to him, watching over his sleep like a little guardian. She didn't fully understand the pain she saw in his eyes, but she recognized the feeling. It was the same pain she felt when she thought about her parents, when she remembered Grandma Delia. "Don't worry, Mr. Valentine," she murmured softly. "I'll take care of you until your family comes back." Outside, a storm began to form, and the first drops of rain hit the broken roof of the abandoned house. The rain started slowly, just a few drops on the broken roof, but soon turned into a furious storm that made the abandoned house tremble. Lily woke up startled by the sound of thunder and ran to check on Valentine, who was sleeping restlessly on the old sofa. Water began to drip through the holes in the roof, forming small puddles on the rotten wooden floor. The girl took some old cans and pans she had found in the kitchen and scattered them around the spots where the water was falling most heavily. "Mr. Valentine," she whispered, shaking him gently, "the rain is coming in." Valentine opened his eyes slowly, disoriented. The fever had started during the night, leaving him confused and weak. "Lily, where are we?" "In Mrs. Craig's house, remember? The rain is strong and water is coming in." He tried to get up, but his legs trembled. The lack of blood pressure medicine, combined with the stress and exposure to the cold, was taking its toll. "I don't feel well, little one." Lily touched his forehead with her cold little hand. It was too hot. "You have a fever. I'm going to get Mrs. Peterson. You can't go out in this rain." "I've been out in worse rain," she said, grabbing a piece of plastic to cover herself. "I'll be right back." The girl disappeared into the storm before Valentine could protest. Alone in the dark house, he closed his eyes and tried not to think about how much his situation had deteriorated. 3 weeks ago, if someone had told him that he would be hiding in an abandoned house, depending on the care of a street child, he would have laughed at the impossibility. Now, the reality was more cruel than any nightmare. On the other side of town, Stella was awake in her kitchen, drinking her third coffee of the morning. She hadn't been able to sleep since Chris's discovery about the hacked computer. The guilt consumed her like a slow fire, burning from within. The phone rang. It was Patty. "Mum, are you awake?" "I am, honey. I couldn't sleep." "Me neither. Mum, I did something." Stella felt her stomach tighten. "What did you do?" "I looked for Oswald. I went to his house last night." "Patty, that was dangerous." "I know, but I needed to confront him. Mom, there's something very wrong with that man. When I mentioned the evidence planted on the computer, he got nervous, very nervous." "What did he say?" "That I was imagining things, that Dad had been deceiving the family for years." "But Mom, he knew details about the investigations that shouldn't be public. How could he know?" Stella stood up, agitated. "Patty, you need to be careful. If Oswald really is behind all this—" "He is, Mum, I'm sure. And there's more. I talked to some former employees of the company. They said that Oswald was always jealous of Dad, always wanted to keep the company for himself. But how could he orchestrate something so complex? He has contacts, Mum. When he worked with Dad, he took care of the IT side. He knows people who work with computers, with investigations. It wouldn't be impossible." Stella sat down again, processing the information. "And now, what do we do? First, we need to find Dad. Then, we prove his innocence." "But where can he be?" "We've already looked everywhere." "Not everywhere," said Patty. "Mum, do you remember that Dad always said that if he ever lost everything, he would go to the places where no one looks?" "The places where no one looks?" "The streets, Mum. The alleys, the abandoned houses, places where the invisible hide." While mother and daughter talked, Lily fought against the storm to get to Mrs. Peterson's house. The rain soaked her completely, and the wind almost knocked her down with every step. But she had promised herself that she would take care of Valentine, and she wasn't going to break that promise. Mrs. Peterson opened the door before Lily even knocked, as if she was waiting. "My God, child, get in here now!" "Mrs. Peterson, Mr. Valentine has a fever. He needs help." The lady didn't hesitate. She grabbed her bag of medicines, a raincoat, and a flashlight. "Let's go, then." The way back was even more difficult. Mrs. Peterson didn't have Lily's agility to pass through the narrow alleys, and they needed to take longer routes. When they finally arrived at the abandoned house, Valentine was delirious. "Stella, forgive me. I didn't do anything. My children," he murmured. Mrs. Peterson examined him quickly. "His blood pressure is very high, and he's dehydrated. He needs stronger medication than I have here. What can we do? There's a doctor who owes me some favors. Dr. Bennett, a good man. I can try to bring him here, but it will be risky. If someone finds out. Lily held Valentine's hand, which burned with fever. He saved me when he was tied up in the park. Now it's my turn to save him. Mrs. Peterson smiled sadly. You saved each other, child. 3 hours later, during a brief lull in the storm, Dr. Bennett arrived at the abandoned house. He was a 60-year-old man with completely white hair, who had been Mrs. Peterson's family doctor for decades. Where's the patient? Dr. Bennett examined Valentine in silence, checking his blood pressure, temperature, and breathing. Then he turned to Mrs. Peterson with a grave expression. He needs to be hospitalized. It can't be, said Lily immediately. If they take him to the hospital, they'll arrest him. Child, if he's not hospitalized, he could... The doctor stopped, looking into the girl's desperate eyes. I can try to stabilize him here, but it will be difficult and risky. Please, begged Lily. He's a good person. He didn't do anything wrong. Dr. Bennett sighed. All right, but I'll need a few things, and you'll have to take care of him exactly as I say. During the early morning, while the storm continued outside, the doctor worked to stabilize Valentine. He administered serum, gave stronger medicines, lowered the fever. Lily didn't leave his side for a minute, holding his hand and humming softly the song she had invented. Little bird flew far away from pain, found a place of love. When the sun began to rise, Valentine opened his eyes for the first time in hours, lucid. He saw Lily sleeping in a chair next to him, still holding his hand. Doctor, he murmured to the doctor who was checking his vital signs. Why are you helping me? Because this girl convinced me that you're worth it, replied Dr. Bennett, and because after 40 years of medicine, I've learned to recognize an innocent man when I see one. How can you be sure? The doctor smiled. Guilty men don't inspire that kind of devotion in a child. They know how to recognize goodness better than we adults do. Outside, the storm had finally passed, but Valentine's problems were far from over. Oswald had discovered that he was still in town and increased the pressure to find him. And on the other side of town, Stella was making the bravest decision of her life. She would look for her husband personally, starting with the most unlikely places, the forgotten corners where the desperate take refuge. The search for forgiveness and truth was just beginning. Stella put on simple clothes for the first time in years, faded jeans and a cotton shirt that she only used to clean the house. She combed her hair into a simple ponytail and left without makeup. She needed to go unnoticed in the places where she would look. She started in the alleys near downtown, places she had always avoided when driving by. She talked to homeless people, showed an old photo of Valentine, offered money for information. Most just shook their heads, but some looked at the photo more carefully. He looks like that man I saw in the park last week, said an elderly woman who sold candy on a corner. He was all beat up, tied to a pole. Tied up? Yes, ma'am. He had a sign around his neck. They did something bad to him. Stella's heart squeezed. Do you know what happened after that? I heard that a little girl let him go, but then they both disappeared. A girl? That's right. Lily, who lives begging around here. Brave girl, that one. Stella mentally noted the name and continued her search. With each conversation, with each detail she discovered, her guilt increased. Valentine had been publicly humiliated, assaulted, tied up like a criminal, and she wasn't there to defend him. Meanwhile, in the abandoned house, Lily helped Valentine to get up slowly. Dr. Bennett's treatment had worked, and he was much better, but still weak. I need to go out, she said, adjusting the blanket over him. Get food and see if anyone's looking. Be careful, murmured Valentine. If someone finds out about our connection... No one will find out. I know how to be invisible. The girl left through the back of the house and headed to downtown. It was her territory, where she knew every street, every hiding place. But today something was different. There was more activity than usual, unknown people asking questions. Lily approached Joaquin at the pharmacy, who always gave her some change when she helped carry boxes. "Hi, Mr. Joaquin." "Hi, Lily. How are you, girl?" "Fine. There are a lot of different people in town today." "That's true. They're looking for that man. You know, the one who was accused of those nasty things." Lily pretended not to know anything. "What man?" "Valentine Craig. He used to be a businessman here in town. They say he ran away when they found out about his crimes." "And why are so many people looking?" Joaquin lowered his voice. "Because they offered a reward, $5,000 for anyone who gives information that leads to him." Lily's blood ran cold. $5,000 was a lot of money, enough money to make anyone betray them. "There's a fancy lady looking for him too," continued Joaquin. "Said she's his wife, seemed very worried." "The wife?" "That's right. A pretty woman, well-dressed. I mean, today she was wearing simple clothes, but you can tell she's not from the streets." Lily felt her heart race. Valentine's wife was looking for him. But would it be to help him or to turn him in? "Where is she now?" "I don't know, girl. She passed by here earlier, asked some questions and moved on." Lily bought some bread with the coins she had and ran back to the abandoned house. She found Valentine sitting on the back porch, sunning himself to warm up. "Mr. Valentine, your wife is in town looking for you." He stood up quickly, almost losing his balance. "Stella, are you sure?" "Mr. Joaquin at the pharmacy said so. He said she looks worried." Valentine's eyes filled with tears. Do you think she believes in me now?" "I don't know," Lily replied honestly. "But there are other people looking too. They're offering money for information." The hope on Valentine's face mixed with fear. "Then I can't stay here. If they find out where I am, where are we going?" "Not we, Lily, just me. You've already done too much for me." "I'm not going to leave you alone. Little one, listen carefully." Valentine knelt in front of her. "If your wife is really looking for me, maybe there's hope. But I need to find out why she's here before I show myself." "How? Could you talk to her?" Lily hesitated. It was risky. But if there was a chance to reunite Valentine with his family, what should I say? Say you know me. See her reaction. If she really believes in my innocence, you'll realize it. That afternoon, Lily went out to look for Stella. It wasn't difficult to find her. She was on a street near the farmer's market, talking to street vendors. The girl watched from afar first. Stella was really pretty, even in simple clothes. She had brown hair tied in a ponytail and eyes of the same color, but what caught Lily's attention most was the look of despair on her face. "Excuse me, ma'am," said Lily, approaching shyly. Stella turned around. "Hi, honey. Do you need anything?" "Are you looking for Mr. Valentine?" Stella stopped completely. You know him?" "Yes, I know him. He's a good person." Tears came instantly to Stella's eyes. She knelt to be at Lily's height. "You're the girl who helped him, aren't you, Lily? How do you know my name?" "People told me. They said a brave girl saved him when he was tied up in the park." Lily studied Stella's face carefully. She didn't see anger or disgust, just pain and regret. "Why didn't you believe him?" The simple question hit Stella like a shot. Because I was scared. The evidence seemed so real. "But you know him. Does he hurt children?" "No," said Stella immediately. "Never. He's always loved children. He wanted so badly to have grandchildren." "Then why did you send him away?" Stella began to cry openly. "Because I'm a coward. Because I was afraid of what people would think. Because I chose my reputation over my husband." Stella's raw honesty touched Lily. It was genuine pain, true regret. "He's sick," said the girl. "He needed a doctor yesterday because of the medicine." "Oh God, the blood pressure medicine. I knew he would run out. Do you want to see him?" Stella held Lily's little hands. "More than anything in the world. But first, I need you to know something important." "What?" We found out who did this to him. My son found evidence that the computer was hacked. Someone planted those horrible things to frame my husband." Lily's eyes widened. "Do you know who it was?" "We suspect Oswald, his former partner, but we don't have enough proof yet." "Mr. Valentine always said that Oswald was going to try something, and he was right. I should have listened." Lily made a decision. "Come with me, but it has to be in secret. A lot of people are looking for him." "I know. Oswald offered a reward. $5,000. A lot of money for those who need it," agreed Stella. "That's why we need to be careful." The two walked through the alleys that Lily knew so well, avoiding the main streets. Stella followed the little girl who had taken care of her husband when she abandoned him, feeling smaller and more useless with each step. When they arrived at the abandoned house, Stella stopped at the back door, nervous. What if Valentine didn't want to see her? What if he couldn't forgive her? "He's inside," said Lily, "waiting for you for a long time." "How do you know?" "Because he says your name when he's sleeping. And when he's awake too." Stella took a deep breath and entered the house that had become her husband's refuge. When Valentine saw her, the two stood still, looking at each other across the dusty room. Then Stella ran to him, and the two hugged as if it were the first time in years. "Forgive me," she whispered against his chest. "Forgive me for not believing. Forgive me for abandoning you when you needed me most." "You're here now," he replied, holding her tight. "That's all that matters." But outside, footsteps approached the house. Someone had followed Stella. The footsteps stopped right in front of the house. Lily ran to the opening between the boards and peered out. Her heart almost stopped when she saw who was there. Oswald Ferrer, accompanied by two men she didn't know. "Stella went in here," said Oswald, pointing to the house. "I'm sure of it." "Are you sure she knows where he is?" asked one of the men. "A woman doesn't go looking for her husband in the alleys of the city if she doesn't have a clue. And look at that. The house looks abandoned, but there are signs that someone has been here recently." Lily ran back to Valentine and Stella, who were still hugging. "It's Oswald," she whispered, desperate. "He brought two men with him." Valentine's face paled. "How did he know?" "He must have followed Mrs. Craig," said Lily, looking at the woman. Stella covered her mouth with her hands, horrified. "My God, what have I done? I led them to you." "It wasn't your fault," said Valentine, trying to think quickly. "Lily, is there any way out through the back?" "There is, but they may have surrounded the house." Outside, Oswald's voice echoed louder. "Valentine, I know you're in there. There's no use hiding." "What does he want?" murmured Stella. "He wants to see me completely destroyed," replied Valentine. "He was always jealous of the company's success. When I kicked him out of the partnership for dishonesty, he swore he would get revenge." "Valentine!" shouted Oswald again. "Come out of there and let's talk like civilized men." "I'm not coming out." "You destroyed my life with lies," Valentine finally retorted. "Lies?" Oswald laughed loudly. "The evidence was on your computer, buddy. How can it be a lie?" "Because you planted it there. Just like you planted it on the company's computers." There was silence outside. Then Oswald's voice returned, lower and more dangerous. "Prove it." "My son is already proving it," Stella shouted, surprising everyone. "Chris found traces of the hacking. We know it was you." "Ah, Stella," said Oswald with false sadness. "How sad to see a woman defending a criminal, even if he is her husband." "He's not a criminal." "You are." "Gentlemen," said Oswald to the men who accompanied him, "break down the door. Let's get the fugitive out of there." Lily pulled Valentine and Stella to the back of the house. "You have to get out of here now." The three exited through the opening in the back, but when they reached the yard, they discovered that Oswald had thought of everything. A third man was waiting for them, blocking the only possible exit. "The game is over," said the man with a cruel smile. They were surrounded. "Please," said Stella, placing herself in front of Valentine. "My husband is innocent. The evidence was planted." "That's what all the guilty say," replied the man. It was then that Lily did something that no one expected. She screamed with all the strength she had in her lungs. "Help! They're trying to hurt us!" The scream echoed through the neighborhood, waking up neighbors and drawing attention. Some residents began to appear in the windows, curious about the noise. "Shut up, girl," said the man, advancing towards her. "Don't touch the child," roared Valentine, placing himself between the man and Lily. At that moment, Mrs. Peterson appeared in the yard next door, accompanied by 3 neighbors. "What's going on here?" she asked with authority. "None of your business, ma'am," replied Oswald, who had gone around the house. "When it involves a child, it is my business," replied Mrs. Peterson. "Lily, are you all right?" "I am, Mrs. Peterson, but they want to hurt Mr. Valentine." "We don't want to hurt anyone," said Oswald, trying to sound reasonable. "We just want to hand over a fugitive to the authorities." "What authorities?" asked one of the neighbors. "Are you from the police?" "We are concerned citizens," replied Oswald, hesitating. "Concerned citizens don't go around armed," said Mrs. Peterson, pointing to the gun on the waist of one of the men. The situation was getting out of Oswald's control. More and more neighbors were appearing, and some began to question the legality of the action. "Look here," said Mrs. Peterson, addressing Oswald directly. "I've known this girl for 2 years. She has a pure heart and only helps good people. If she's protecting this man, it's because he's done nothing wrong." "The opinion of a street child is worthless," said Oswald with disdain. "Her opinion is worth more than yours," replied Mrs. Peterson, "because she has no interest in lying." More neighbors joined the group, and some began to take pictures with their cell phones. Oswald realized that the situation was getting out of control. "Let's go," he said to his henchmen. "It's not worth it." "But what about the man?" asked one of them. "We'll solve this another way later." Before leaving, Oswald approached Valentine. "This isn't over," he whispered. "I'm going to destroy you anyway." "You've already tried," replied Valentine, "and you failed." "I haven't tried everything yet." Oswald and his men left the yard, but everyone knew it was just a strategic retreat. He would be back. "You can't stay here," said Mrs. Peterson after the men left. "He'll be back with more people." "Where can we go?" asked Stella. "I know a place," said Lily, "but it's far away, and it's small." "Anywhere is better than here," said Valentine. Mrs. Peterson offered to accompany them to the new hiding place. It was a small cabin in the hills surrounding the town, where an old miner had lived decades ago. Lily had discovered it during one of her wanderings and knew it had been abandoned for years. The walk was difficult, especially for Valentine, who was still recovering. But with Stella on one side and Lily on the other, he managed to reach the cabin. The place was rustic, but dry and safe. There was a small natural spring nearby and fruit trees around. More importantly, it was far from the curious eyes of the town. "Here you'll be safe for a while," said Mrs. Peterson, "but you can't stay forever." "I know," said Valentine. "We need to find a way to prove my innocence and expose Oswald." "How?" asked Stella. "I don't know yet, but I know I can't spend the rest of my life on the run." That night, in the cabin illuminated only by the moon, Lily snuggled between Valentine and Stella. For the first time in weeks, she felt truly safe. "Mr. Valentine," she murmured, almost asleep. "What is it, little one?" "Mrs. Craig is just like you said. Pretty and good." Stella smiled, stroking the girl's hair. "And you're braver than any adult I know." "You're my family now," said Lily, closing her eyes. Valentine and Stella looked at each other over the girl's head. Both knew that regardless of what happened, Lily had become part of their lives forever. But back in town, Oswald hadn't given up. He had a new plan, more cruel than anything he had tried before. And this time, he wasn't going to fail. The next morning, Chris arrived at the Cordero furniture office earlier than usual. He had spent the night working on his father's old computer and discovered information that changed everything. He needed to examine the company's computers before Oswald arrived. The 25-year-old had inherited his father's patience and his mother's determination. Working with IT had taught him that there are always digital traces, and he was determined to find them. "Good morning, Chris," said Martha, the secretary who had worked at the company for 15 years. "Good to see you here." "Good morning, Martha. I need to take a look at the office computers." "Of course, son. You know you can count on me for anything. I always knew your father was innocent." "What do you mean?" Martha lowered her voice and looked around to make sure they were alone. "Chris, I've worked here for a long time. I saw your father create this company from scratch, always with honesty. And I also saw how Oswald was when he was kicked out of the partnership. What are you trying to say? He swore revenge, said your father would pay dearly for humiliating him. At the time, I thought they were just words of anger, but now—" "Martha, do you remember anything specific he said?" The secretary thought for a moment. "He said he knew your father's weaknesses, that he knew exactly how to destroy him." Chris felt a chill down his spine. "And you never told this to anyone?" "Who was I going to tell? When it all started, it seemed like the evidence against your father was solid. I thought maybe I was wrong about him. But now you don't think that anymore." "Now I know my instinct was right. Oswald is capable of anything." Chris spent the next few hours examining the company's computers. What he found confirmed his worst suspicions. All had been hacked remotely, malicious programs had been installed, and files had been planted without the user's knowledge. "Martha, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "When Oswald worked here, did he have access to everyone's computers?" "He did. He took care of the IT side, installed programs, did maintenance. He had all the passwords." "And after he left, were the passwords changed?" Martha turned pale. "No. Your father trusted people too much, said it wasn't necessary." Chris was now absolutely sure. Oswald had used his knowledge of the company's systems to plant incriminating evidence, but he needed more proof, something he could take to the authorities. Meanwhile, in the cabin in the hills, Lily explored the surroundings with the natural curiosity of a child. She had found several fruit trees and a small abandoned vegetable garden that still produced some vegetables. "Look, Mr. Valentine," she said, returning with her arms full of fruit. "There's food here." Valentine smiled, seeing the girl's joy. Even in the difficult situation they were in, she managed to find reasons to be happy. "You're amazing, little one." Stella watched the interaction between her husband and the girl who had saved them. There was something special there, a connection that went beyond circumstances. "Valentine," she said when Lily went out to get water from the spring. "I've been thinking about Lily. What about her? She has no family. There's no one to take care of her." "I know. It breaks my heart. What if, when all this is over, what if we take care of her?" Valentine looked at his wife, surprised. "Are you serious?" "I've never been more serious in my life. She saved us, Valentine, saved our marriage, our family, and more than that, I love her. I love this brave girl who wasn't afraid to help a stranger." "I love her too," admitted Valentine, "but would she want to? Do we deserve it?" Only she can answer that. When Lily returned with water, she found the two talking seriously. "Did something happen?" "Lily," said Stella, kneeling in front of her, "can I ask you a question?" "You can. Would you like to have a family? A real family?" Lily's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "Like a mommy and a daddy who would love you forever, a home where you would always be welcome, older brothers who would take care of you." The girl was quiet for a long time, processing the possibility. "You want to be my family?" "We do," said Valentine, "if you want us to. But what if the bad people come back? What if you have to run again?" "Then we'll run together," said Stella. "Families stick together in difficult times." Lily threw herself into Stella's arms, crying with joy. "I always wanted to have a mom again." "And we always wanted to have a daughter," said Stella, also crying. The afternoon passed peacefully in the cabin, with the three planning a future that seemed impossible under the current circumstances. But for the first time in weeks, There was hope in the air. That peace was interrupted when Chris arrived at the cabin in the late afternoon, bringing urgent news. "Dad! Mom!" he called, running along the trail. "Chris!" Stella ran to hug her son. "How did you find us?" "Mrs. Peterson told me where you were. Dad, I discovered important things." Chris told about his discoveries on the company's computers, about Martha's testimony, about all the evidence he had collected. "Is that enough to prove my innocence?" asked Valentine, hopeful. "It's a start, but we need more. We need to catch Oswald in the act, doing something he can't deny. How? I don't know yet, but I know he won't stop. He has too much to lose if the truth comes out." "What kind of things does he have to lose?" asked Stella. "Mum, I discovered that he's using the company to launder money. There are fake contracts, fraudulent invoices. He's stealing a lot of money." "My God," murmured Valentine. "He not only framed me, but he's using my company for real crimes." "Exactly. That's why he needs you to continue being the culprit. If they prove your innocence, they'll investigate further and discover his crimes." Lily, who had been listening in silence, suddenly spoke. "I know where he keeps important papers." Everyone turned to her. "How do you know that?" asked Chris. "Because I saw him hiding things. One day, when I was begging near the office, I saw him putting a folder in a secret drawer in the desk." "What kind of secret drawer?" "A drawer that's hidden under the table. He thought no one was watching, but I was." Chris was thoughtful. "If we could get access to those documents, it would be too dangerous," said Valentine. "I can't let you risk yourselves for my sake. Dad, this is our family. We take risks together." "And I know the office better than anyone," said Lily. "I know how to get in without anyone seeing." "No," said Stella firmly. "I'm not going to let a child risk herself like that." "But I'm small. I can go through places you can't, and I know how to be invisible." "Lily's right," said Chris. "But she can't go alone. I'll go with her." "And I too," said Stella. "And I," completed Valentine. "No, Dad, you can't show up in town. It's too risky." While the family discussed the details of the risky plan, none of them noticed that they were being watched. In the shadows of the forest, one of Oswald's men noted every word they said. The trap was being set, and they were walking straight into it. The plan was put into action in the early morning of the following day. Chris, Stella, and Lily descended silently along the trail that led to the town, while Valentine stayed in the cabin, against his will. Each step was calculated, each shadow was checked. "Remember," whispered Chris, "if anything goes wrong, you run. Don't wait for me." "Don't talk like that," said Stella. "We're going to go in and out together." Lily walked in front, guiding them through the paths she knew by heart. Her small silhouette moved like a ghost between the trees, stopping from time to check if everything was safe. What they didn't know was that Oswald was waiting for them. The man who had spied on them the night before had run to tell his boss everything, and now an ambush was being prepared. "Let them get to the office," ordered Oswald to his henchmen. "I want to catch them in the act, invading private property. That way no one will question when I hand them over to the authorities." "And if they get the documents?" asked one of the men. "They won't get them. The drawer is empty. I moved everything yesterday." Oswald smiled cruelly. He had thought of every detail. When he caught the family in the act, he would not only get rid of the Valentine problem once and for all, but also gain the sympathy of the population as a victim of an invasion. In the center of town, Chris, Stella, and Lily approached the building where Cordero Furniture was located. The streets were deserted, only illuminated by the lamp posts that created yellowish circles on the asphalt. "How are we going to get in?" asked Stella. "There's a back window that doesn't close properly," said Lily. "I've used it before when I was cold." "When was this?" "Last winter. Valentine always left cookies on his desk. I'd grab one or two when I was really hungry." Chris and Stella exchanged glances. Lily's life had been even harder than they imagined. The girl led them to the back of the building, where a small window gave access to a storage room. With her natural agility, she managed to open it and climb in first, then helped the others. The interior of the building was dark and silent. They knew those corridors well, but in the darkness they seemed different, almost haunted. "Dad's office is at the end of the hall," Chris whispered. They walked in single file, using the cell phone flashlight only when necessary. Every noise made them stop and listen. Every shadow made them recoil. When they reached the main office, Lily went straight to the desk, where she had seen Oswald hide the documents. "It's down here," she said, pointing to a part of the desk that looked normal. Chris examined it carefully and found a disguised mechanism. When he pressed it, a small secret drawer opened. It was empty. "There's nothing here," he muttered, frustrated. "But I saw him putting things here," Lily insisted. "There was a brown folder full of papers." "He must have moved it," Stella said. "Let's look elsewhere." That's when the lights suddenly came on, blinding them. "Looking for something?" Oswald's voice said. They turned and found the man standing in the doorway, accompanied by 3 goons. They all looked very pleased with themselves. "Oswald," Stella said, trying to stay calm, "we can explain." "Explain what?" "That you're trespassing on private property. That you're trying to steal company documents." "We're not stealing anything," Chris retorted. "We're looking for evidence of your crimes." Oswald laughed loudly. "My crimes? I'm not the one running from the law. I'm not the one who was accused of—" "Well, you know what? We know you planted that evidence," Stella said bravely. "Prove it." "We will prove it," Chris said. "We have traces of the computer hacking." "Hacking? What hacking?" "I worked here for years. I had access to all the systems. I didn't need to hack anything." Oswald's twisted logic was almost perfect. He had used his privileged position in the company to orchestrate Valentine's downfall, and now he was using the same position to defend himself. "Where's my husband?" Stella asked. "That's a great question. You're going to tell me that now." "Never," Lily said suddenly, stepping in front of Stella. "We're not going to tell you where he is." Oswald looked at the little girl with disdain. "Ah, the famous heroine, the street urchin who saved poor innocent Valentine." "He is innocent," Lily said firmly. "Is he really? And you, a 4-year-old, understand innocence and guilt? I understand good people and bad people, and you are a bad person." The brutal simplicity of the answer irritated Oswald. "You're going to tell me where Valentine is, or things are going to get very unpleasant." "We're not going to say anything," Stella said, pulling Lily close. "Mom," Chris whispered, "the phone. Call the authorities." Stella tried discreetly to grab her cell phone, but one of Oswald's henchmen was faster. He took the device from her and threw it on the ground, stomping on it. "You're not calling anyone," Oswald said. "At least not until you tell me where Valentine is hiding." "And if we don't tell you," Chris challenged, "then you're going to spend a few days in a uncomfortable place until you change your mind." The situation was getting desperate. They had fallen into a perfect trap, and there was no way out. That's when Lily did something no one expected. She screamed with all the strength of her little lungs, "Help! They're trying to hurt us!" The scream echoed through the empty building and out the open windows. In the silence of the early morning, it was heard by several people. "Shut up!" Oswald ordered, furious. But Lily continued to scream, "Help! The bad man is here! Help!" Oswald signaled one of his men to approach the girl, but Chris stood in the way. "Don't touch her! Get out of the way, kid!" "I'm not moving." The tension in the office was at its limit when they heard sirens approaching. Someone had called the authorities. "Boss, we have to get out of here," one of the goons said. "Not without finding out where Valentine is," Oswald replied, desperate. "There's no time." The sirens were getting closer and closer. Oswald realized that his plan had failed, but he wasn't going to give up easily. "All right," he said, backing toward the door. "You won this battle, but the war is not over." "Oswald," Stella said before he left, "you won't be able to run forever. The truth always comes out." "The truth?" He laughed bitterly. "The truth is that I built a perfect plan." And even if it didn't work today, I still have cards up my sleeve. What cards? You'll find out soon. Oswald and his men ran out the emergency exit, disappearing into the darkness seconds before the authorities arrived. When the officers entered the office, they found Chris, Stella, and Lily huddled together in the middle of the room, trembling with fear and relief. "What happened here?" the officer asked. "It's a long story," Stella said, "but we finally have a way to prove that my husband is innocent." But as they talked to the authorities, none of them noticed that Oswald hadn't left. He was hiding outside the building, talking on his cell phone. "Yes, it's him," he was saying to someone. "Valentine Craig. I want you to spread this all over the internet. I want everyone to know where to look." The war was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The next morning, Valentine woke up in the cabin with a terrible premonition. Stella, Chris, and Lily had not yet returned from their mission, and every minute that passed increased his anxiety. He had promised to stay hidden, but concern for his family was becoming unbearable. That's when he heard footsteps on the trail. His heart raced. Would it be them returning, or would it be Oswald having discovered the hiding place? To his relief, it was Mrs. Peterson, but her expression was grave. "Valentine, I need to tell you something," she said, panting from the steep walk. "What is it? Is my family all right?" "They're fine, yes, but Oswald did something terrible." Mrs. Peterson told him about the events of the night, the trap in the office, the narrow escape, the arrival of the authorities. But there was something more. "He spread your location on the internet," she said. "Created fake pages on social media saying you're hiding in the hills. There are pictures of the trail, descriptions of the cabin." Valentine felt his blood run cold. How did he get that information? "He must have had someone follow your family yesterday. By now, half the town must be coming up here. I need to get out of here now." "Where are you going to go? He's cut off all your escape routes." Valentine walked to the small window of the cabin and looked out. In the distance, he could already see small groups of people climbing the trails. Some carried signs, others had cell phone cameras. The hunt had become a public spectacle. "Mrs. Peterson, you need to leave. If they find out you helped me, I'm not going to leave you alone at this moment. Please, you've already done too much for me." The old woman hugged him tightly. "Valentine, listen carefully. Your family is safe with the authorities. They're telling them everything they know about Oswald, but it will take time to prove your innocence. Time I don't have. Yes, you do, because you're not alone in this fight." Mrs. Peterson left the cabin, but she didn't go down the trail. Instead, she hid among the nearby trees. She had made a decision. She wasn't going to abandon the man her little Lily had chosen to protect. An hour later, the first groups arrived at the cabin. They were mainly young men, some carrying stones and makeshift clubs. The anger that Oswald had cultivated for weeks was finally being channeled. "We know you're in there!" one of them shouted. "Come out with your hands up!" Valentine took a deep breath. He knew he had no escape. He could try to run through the woods, but he was too weak, and they would soon catch him. All that was left was to face the situation with dignity. He opened the door of the cabin and stepped out, hands raised. What he saw surprised him. It wasn't just angry men. There were entire families, children, the elderly. Many seemed more curious than furious. "It's him!" someone shouted. "It's Valentine Craig!" "Criminal!" another yelled, but then a familiar voice echoed through the crowd. "He's not a criminal!" Everyone turned. It was Lily, running up the trail, followed by Stella and Chris. The girl had convinced the authorities to let her return, arguing that she knew the cabin better than anyone. "Lily, no!" Valentine shouted. It was too dangerous for her to be there. But the girl placed herself between him and the crowd, her small arms outstretched, as if she could protect him alone. "He's a good person," she shouted with all her might. "He saved me when I was alone and hungry." "Get out of the way, girl," one of the men said. "You don't understand what he's accused of." "Yes, I do, and he didn't do any of it." How can you be sure? Because I lived with him. Because he took care of me when I was sick. Because when I had nightmares, he stayed up comforting me. The crowd hesitated. The passion in the girl's voice was genuine, and her courage was impressive. "Lily's right," Stella said, arriving at her daughter's side. "My husband is innocent, and we have proof of that." "What proof?" someone asked. That's when Chris stepped forward, holding a laptop. Proof that his computers were hacked. Proof that someone planted false evidence. "And who would that someone be?" a woman from the crowd asked. "Oswald Ferrer," Stella replied. "The former partner who was kicked out of the company for dishonesty." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some knew Oswald, and not everyone had a good impression of him. "Where is this proof?" another man insisted. Chris opened the laptop and began to show the files he had discovered, screens full of code, system logs, digital traces that proved the hacking. "This shows that someone remotely accessed my dad's computer," he explained. "See here, files were planted on a specific date, using a program that allows total control of the machine." "How do we know you didn't make this up?" someone challenged. "Because it's not just me saying it," Chris replied. "I brought a computer expert with me." A middle-aged man stepped forward. It was Dr. Bennett, a specialist in digital crimes who had been called in by the authorities. "I examined all the material," he told the crowd. "The evidence is clear. Valentine Craig's computers were hacked and files were deliberately planted to incriminate him." "And who had access to do this?" an older woman asked. "Someone who knew the company's systems intimately. Someone who had passwords and technical knowledge." "Oswald," someone murmured in the crowd. "Exactly," said Dr. Bennett. "And we found more. We discovered that Oswald was using the company for money laundering, fraudulent contracts, tax evasion. Destroying Valentine's reputation was just part of a larger plan." The crowd began to stir, but now the anger was directed at another target. "Where is Oswald now?" someone asked. "He fled," Stella replied. "But the authorities are already after him." That's when a new voice echoed through the hill. "You don't need to look anymore." Everyone turned. It was Oswald, accompanied by several armed men. He had come up an alternative trail and was now surrounding the crowd. "Oswald!" Valentine shouted. "Stop this! These people are innocent!" "Innocent?" Oswald laughed. "They came here to lynch you. They don't seem very innocent to me." "They were manipulated." "By you. Manipulated or not, they're in my way now." Oswald addressed the crowd. "Folks, I'm sorry to interrupt this touching moment of redemption, but you're only hearing one side of the story." "What other side?" Grandma Delia shouted, emerging from her hiding place among the trees. "The side that shows the real evidence. The files Valentine hid before fleeing. His plans to continue his crimes." Oswald pulled out a folder of documents. "It's all here. Contracts with criminal organizations, suspicious payments, all in the name of Craig Furniture." "Lies!" Chris shouted. "You forged those documents." "Prove it." "I don't need to prove it. Everyone here knows who the liar is." The crowd was divided now. Some still believed Oswald. Others were beginning to question his intentions. "Oswald," Valentine said, stepping forward. "Stop this. You've already destroyed my life. What more do you want?" "I want justice. I want you to pay for the crimes you committed." "What crimes? You know I'm innocent." "Do I?" Oswald smiled coldly. "Or did you convince me of that too?" It was then that Lily did something that changed everything. She approached Oswald, unafraid, and looked directly into his eyes. "Why do you hate Valentine so much?" she asked, with the brutal innocence of children. The question caught Oswald off guard. I don't hate anyone." "Yes, you do. I can see it in your eyes. It's like the hate the aunt who beat me had." "Girl, you don't understand." "Yes, I do. You're angry because you couldn't have what Valentine has." "What I wanted was justice." "No," Lily said, shaking her head. "You wanted to be him. You wanted to have his company, his family, his respect, but you couldn't, so you got angry." The devastating simplicity of Lily's analysis left the entire crowd silent. Even Oswald's men looked uncomfortable. "And now," the girl continued, "you want to destroy all of this because you can't have it." Oswald turned red with anger. "Shut up, girl. You don't know anything." "Yes, I do. I know that bad people always try to destroy good people when they can't be like them." The crystalline truth in Lily's words hit Oswald like a punch. For a moment, his face showed not anger, but a deep pain and a corrosive envy that had consumed him for years. "You don't understand," he murmured. "I worked just as hard as him. I deserved to succeed too." "But you tried to succeed by stealing and lying," Grandma Delia said. "That's not the right way." Oswald's mask finally slipped completely. He was no longer the successful businessman, nor the citizen concerned with justice. He was just a man consumed by envy and resentment. And now, surrounded by the truth, and with nowhere left to hide, he would make his final decision. Oswald stood still for a few seconds, processing what had just happened. His lies had been unmasked by a 4-year-old child in front of dozens of people. His reputation, his carefully crafted plan, everything was crumbling. "No," he muttered, shaking his head. "It can't end like this." "Oswald," Valentine said, approaching slowly, "stop this. You can still turn yourself in, cooperate with the authorities. Maybe you can get your sentence reduced." "Sentence?" Oswald laughed bitterly. "You think I'm going to prison because of you? You're going to prison for your own crimes. I have nothing to do with it." "You have everything to do with it," Oswald exploded. "If you hadn't kicked me out of the company, none of this would have happened." "I kicked you out because you were stealing," Valentine retorted. "You were skimming money from the suppliers." "It was a little. It was very little compared to what you were making." The crowd watched the confrontation in silence. Some were beginning to understand Oswald's true nature, a man consumed by envy who couldn't accept the consequences of his own choices. "Oswald," Stella said, trying a conciliatory tone, "there's still time to do the right thing." "The right thing?" He turned to her with wild eyes. "The right thing would be for me to have had half the company from the beginning. The right thing would be for me to have the life Valentine has." "But you can't have it," Lily said, still unafraid. "Because you're not a good person. And you're just a street kid. What do you know about life? I know that good people help others when they're suffering, and bad people make others suffer because of their anger." Lily's simple words echoed through the hill. Several people in the crowd began to murmur approval. The wisdom of that small child was touching hearts. Oswald realized he was completely losing control of the situation. His own men were beginning to look uncomfortable, questioning whether they were on the right side. "Boss," one of them said, "maybe we should just go." "No!" Oswald shouted. "I'm not leaving without finishing what I started." He turned to the crowd again, desperate to regain some control. "You're being deceived. This man is a dangerous criminal. The evidence they showed you is false." "The evidence is true," Dr. Bennett said. "I analyzed it myself. You were bought by them." "No one bought me. I'm an official state expert." Oswald was getting more and more desperate. His arguments sounded hollow. His accusations seemed absurd. The truth was asserting itself, and he could no longer control it. "All right," he said, changing his strategy. "If you don't want to listen to reason—" He signaled his men, who began to position themselves menacingly around the crowd. "Oswald, don't do this," Valentine said, realizing the change in tone. "These people have nothing to do with our problems. They have everything to do with it. They came here to see me destroyed. They came here manipulated by your lies, and now they're going to pay for it." The situation was becoming dangerous. Oswald's men looked nervous, but they followed his orders. The crowd began to stir, parents pulling children close, older people seeking protection. "Mom," Chris whispered to Stella, "take Lily and get out of here." "I'm not leaving you." "Please, if things get ugly." "No one is going anywhere," Oswald interrupted, overhearing the conversation. "You created this situation. Now you're going to see how far it goes." It was then that Mrs. Peterson did something surprising. The 60-year-old woman walked directly to Oswald, ignoring his armed men. "Oswald Ferrer," she said with the authority of someone who had raised 7 children, "you should be ashamed of yourself. Mrs. Peterson, get out of the way. I won't move. You want to intimidate innocent people? Then you'll have to go over me first." Other people began to join her. First was Joaquin from the pharmacy, then Martha from the company, then several other people who knew both Valentine and Oswald. "We're staying too," Joaquin said. "Valentine has always been an honest man. If Mrs. Peterson believes in him, we believe in him too." "And I've known Oswald for years," Martha said. "I always knew he was dishonest. I just didn't know he was capable of something like this." One by one, members of the crowd began to position themselves alongside Valentine. Not all of them. Some still had doubts. Others were too afraid to get involved, but enough to show that public opinion was changing. Oswald saw his last chance of control disappearing. In desperation, he made the mistake that would seal his fate. "All right," he shouted. "You want the truth? I'll tell you the truth." Everyone fell silent, waiting. "Yes, I planted that evidence. Yes, I hacked his computers. And yes, I destroyed his reputation on purpose." A murmur of shock passed through the crowd. Even those who already suspected were impressed with the direct confession. "Because he deserved it," Oswald continued, now completely out of control. "He had everything I wanted: success, family, respect. And when I tried to have my share, he kicked me out like I was garbage." "Oswald, stop," one of his men said. "You're incriminating yourself." "It doesn't matter anymore. I've already lost everything anyway." Valentine looked at the man who had been his partner and then became his worst enemy. He felt more pity than anger. "Oswald, you didn't have to do this. You could have started over, built your own company, your own life." "With what? After you kicked me out, no one trusted me anymore." "Because you were dishonest." "I was dishonest because I needed to be, because it was the only way to compete with you." Oswald's distorted logic was clear now. He had convinced himself that his shortcomings were justified, that his cheating was necessary, that his revenge was fair. "Oswald," Lily said, approaching again, "there's still time for you to apologize." "Apologize?" He looked at the girl with disdain. "For what? For trying to give him what he deserved? For hurting innocent people?" "Innocent people? He destroyed my life." "No," Lily said, shaking her head. "You destroyed your own life, and now you want to destroy everyone else's." The simple and devastating truth of the girl hit Oswald like a shot. He stood still, looking at that small child who could see through all his lies and justifications. For a moment, something in his eyes changed. There was a spark of recognition, perhaps even of regret. But then the anger returned, stronger than before. "No," he said, clenching his fists. "I'm not going to let a street kid lecture me." He turned to his men. "Arrest them all. Let's settle this once and for all." The men hesitated. Oswald's confession had changed everything. They were no longer helping to capture a fugitive criminal. They were helping an unbalanced man threaten innocent people. "Boss," one of them said, "I didn't sign up for this." "Me neither," said another. "You hired us to catch a fugitive, not to threaten families." One by one, Oswald's men began to walk away. They realized they were on the wrong side of the story. Oswald was left alone, surrounded by dozens of people who now knew the truth about him. His revenge had turned against himself, and he had nowhere left to run. It was time for his final decision. Oswald stood in the center of the hill, alone, surrounded by faces that looked at him with a mixture of pity and revulsion. His own men had walked away. His lies had been exposed, and his public confession had sealed his fate. "Oswald," Valentine said, approaching slowly, "we can still resolve this without violence. You can turn yourself in, seek help." "Help?" Oswald laughed, but it was a broken laugh without joy. "What kind of help will erase 30 years of humiliation?" Humiliation you created yourself, Dr. Bennett said. No one forced you to make those decisions. You don't understand, Oswald exploded. I've always been treated as inferior, at school, at work, in society. Valentine always had it easy. Easy? Valentine shook his head. Oswald, I worked 16 hours a day for 20 years to build my company. Nothing was easy. But you had talent. You had charisma. People liked you naturally. And you thought destroying my life was going to change that. Oswald looked around, seeing the faces that condemned him. For the first time in months, the reality of what he had done began to penetrate his obsessed mind. I just wanted to have what you had, he murmured, his voice breaking. But you tried to get it the wrong way, Mrs. Peterson said firmly. You hurt an innocent child in the process. I didn't hurt the girl. Yes, you did, Lily said, walking towards him. You hurt Valentine, and when someone hurts a person we love, they hurt us too. The simple words of the girl hit Oswald unexpectedly. He looked at her, small, brave, fiercely protecting the man who had become her family. I never had that, he said, almost whispering. I never had someone who defended me like that. Because you never took care of anyone, Lily replied. You only took care of the anger you had inside your heart. Stella watched the conversation with growing emotion. That little girl had a wisdom that many adults never develop. Oswald, she said, it's not too late to change. You can start by doing the right thing now. What right thing? My life is over. Your life is only over if you decide it's over, Chris said. You can still seek help. Go to therapy. Try to understand why you made these choices. And why would I do that? Because, Lily said, everyone deserves a chance to be better. The generosity of the girl, after everything Oswald had done to destroy her new family, was too much for him to process. He knelt on the ground, his hands covering his face. I ruined everything, he murmured. I ruined my life, your lives, the lives of so many people. You ruined a lot of things, Valentine agreed, but you can still try to fix some. How? By confessing everything to the authorities, by returning the money you stole, by helping other people you hurt. Oswald raised his head, looking at Valentine with eyes red with tears. Why are you offering me this? After everything I've done? Because, Valentine said, holding on to anger only hurts the person who holds it. And because I learned, through Lily, that everyone deserves a second chance. The crowd watched in silence. Many were moved by the demonstration of forgiveness. Others still distrusted Oswald's intentions. I don't know if I can, Oswald said. I don't know if I'm strong enough to face the consequences. No one needs to be strong alone, Mrs. Peterson said. That's what other people are for. It was then that they heard the sound of sirens approaching. The authorities had finally arrived, alerted by the events in the office the night before and by calls from several residents of the town. The time has come, Dr. Bennett said. Oswald, you can turn yourself in voluntarily or... I'm turning myself in, Oswald said, getting up slowly. But before, he turned to Valentine. Forgiveness. I know it's little. I know it doesn't change anything I've done, but forgiveness. Valentine extended his hand to him. I accept your apology. Oswald hesitated, then shook the offered hand. How can you forgive me? Because I learned that forgiving isn't about you deserving it or not. It's about me not wanting to carry hatred in my heart. The squad cars arrived at the foot of the hill, and soon several officers began to climb the trails. Oswald looked at them approaching, then turned one last time to the family he had tried to destroy. Lily, he said to the girl, you're going to have a good life with them, better than I ever had. You can have a good life too, she replied. When you get out of prison, you can start over. You think so? I think so. Grandma Delia always said that it's never too late to plant a good seed. The officers reached them, and Oswald surrendered without resistance. As he was led down the trail, he turned one last time. Valentine, he shouted, take good care of the girl. I will, Valentine replied. The crowd began to disperse slowly. Many approached Valentine to apologize for believing the accusations, others to congratulate Lily on her courage. Valentine, she said, pulling on his pants, can we go home now? Valentine looked at Stella, who smiled and nodded. Yes, little one, we can go home. Our real home. Our real home. As they walked down the trail together, Valentine, Stella, Chris, and Lily, the girl held the hands of the two adults and hummed her song softly. Little bird flew, flew far away from the pain, found a place of love. Lily, Stella said, do you want to change the lyrics of your song? Why? Because you don't need to fly away from the pain anymore. You've already found your place of love. The girl thought for a moment, then smiled. Little bird landed, where there is much love, found, her heart family. It's perfect, Valentine said, picking her up. Just like us, Lily said, hugging his neck. Down below in the town, a new life awaited them. It wouldn't be easy. There would still be bureaucracy to resolve, businesses to rebuild, reputations to restore. But now they would face everything together as a real family. And in the hills of upstate New York, the wind carried Lily's new song, spreading it through the valleys as a promise that, even in the darkest moments, love always finds a way. 3 months after the events on the hill, life in upstate New York had found a new rhythm. The Craig's house, which for weeks had been a place of silence and sadness, now echoed with laughter and lively conversation. Lily had transformed that home in ways no one could have imagined. "Dad, did you manage to resolve the situation with the bank?" asked Patty during Saturday breakfast. The young lawyer had become fundamental in the process of clearing her father's name and rebuilding the family business. "I did it," Valentine replied, smiling as he watched Lily try to cut a piece of French roll that was bigger than her little hands. "The loans have been released again. We can reopen the company on Monday." "Really?" Stella almost dropped her coffee cup. "After everything we've been through?" The evidence that Chris collected was decisive. And Oswald's public confession helped a lot too. Lily stopped struggling with the French roll and looked at him curiously. "What's going to happen to Oswald?" Valentine chose his words carefully. In recent months, he had tried to explain the situation to Lily in a way that she could understand, without scaring her or creating additional trauma. He's going to stay in a special place for a while, where people will help him understand why he did bad things. And when he's better, maybe he can try to be a good person. Like when I was sick and Dr. Bennett helped me. Something like that, yes. "I hope he gets better," Lily said, turning her attention back to the French roll. Everyone deserves to get better. The girl's generosity never ceased to impress the family. Even after everything she had suffered, she maintained a capacity for forgiveness that shamed many adults. "Lily," Stella said, "today we're going to the courthouse to take care of some important papers. Do you want to come with us?" "What papers?" "The papers that will make you officially our daughter." Lily's eyes widened. They had talked about adoption several times, but she still couldn't quite believe it was happening. "Forever?" "Forever," Valentine confirmed. "Lily Craig, do you like the sound of it?" The girl tested the name on her tongue. "Lily Craig. Lily Craig." Then she smiled, the most radiant smile they had ever seen. "I like it a lot." Chris, who had been quiet during the conversation, finally spoke. "Lily, can I tell you a secret?" "Yes. When you officially become my sister, I'll teach you how to use a computer, and I'll show you how I discovered that Oswald was lying." "Really? I'm going to learn how to use the computer?" "Yes. And who knows, one day you might become a better detective than me." Lily laughed, imagining herself solving mysteries on the computer. Then she became serious for a moment. "Chris, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Were you mad at me when your dad and mom said they wanted to adopt me?" The question caught Chris off guard. He looked at the little girl who had saved his family in so many different ways. "Mad? Lily, You saved my dad. You saved my family. Why would I be mad? I don't know. Now you're going to have to share your parents' love with me. Chris knelt next to her chair. Lily, love isn't something that diminishes when we share it. Love grows. The more people to love, the more love there is. How so? Before you arrived, I loved my parents and my sister. Now I love my parents, my sister, and you. I don't have less love for them. I have more love in total. Lily thought about it, her expression serious with concentration. So it's like when we light a candle with another candle. The first one doesn't get less bright, but now there are two lights? Exactly like that. I understand. She smiled. So our family got brighter. Much brighter, agreed Patty, who had heard the whole conversation with tears in her eyes. Later that day, the whole family headed to the courthouse to finalize the adoption papers. Lily was wearing her prettiest dress, a light blue one that Stella had bought especially for the occasion, and held her new parents' hands tightly. Nervous? Valentine asked. A little bit, she admitted. What if they change their minds? No one is going to change their mind, Stella said. We chose you, and you chose us. That doesn't change. At the courthouse, while waiting to be called, Lily watched other families around. There were couples getting married, people resolving document issues, children running through the hallways. Stella, she said suddenly, can I still call you Mom, even on the papers? Of course you can. In fact, I'd really like that. And can Valentine be Dad on the papers too? Yes, you can, little one. When they were finally called, Lily held both their hands and walked with dignity to the clerk's desk. The man, a middle-aged gentleman with glasses, smiled when he saw them. So this is the young lady who's going to become a Craig today? That's me, Lily said, trying to sound formal. And are you sure you want to be part of this family? Lily looked at Valentine, then at Stella, then at Chris and Patty, who were waiting beside them. I'm sure. They took care of me when I was alone. They gave me food when I was hungry. They protected me when I was scared. And they loved me when I thought no one would ever love me again. The clerk blinked several times, clearly moved. Well then, let's make it official. The process was simpler than Lily had imagined. Some papers to sign. Valentine and Stella signed for her, as she didn't yet know how to write properly. Some questions to answer, and suddenly she had a new birth certificate. Lily Craig, the clerk read. Born on... He looked at her. Do you know when you were born? Grandma Delia always said it was on the day of the yellow flowers. Stella smiled. September 21st. It was her grandmother's favorite day. Perfect. Lily Craig, born on September 21st, daughter of Valentine Craig and Stella Craig. Hearing her new name being read officially made everything real for Lily. She was no longer a street kid without a family. She was Lily Craig, beloved daughter of parents who had chosen her. Can I see? She asked, wanting to see her name on the papers. The clerk showed her the certificate, pointing where it said Lily Craig. She ran her little finger over the letters, memorizing each one. Now it's official, Valentine said, picking her up. You're our daughter forever, and you're my parents forever, she replied, hugging him tight. When they left the courthouse, Lily insisted on stopping at Central Park, the same park where everything had begun. She ran to the spot where Valentine had been tied up months before. It was here that I found my dad, she told her siblings. And it was here that you saved our family, Patty said. No, Lily corrected. It was here that we saved each other. As the family walked through the park, several people greeted them. The story of Lily and Valentine had spread through the town, and many admired the girl's courage and the family's generosity in adopting her. Valentine, Mrs. Peterson called, who saw them from the door of her house. How's our little heroine? I'm not a heroine, Mrs. Peterson, Lily said, running to hug the lady who had helped so much. I just did what Grandma Delia taught me. And what did she teach you? That when we see someone suffering, we help. It doesn't matter if we're suffering too. Your grandmother was a wise woman. She was. And I think she'd be happy knowing that I have a family again. I'm sure she would be. That night at home, Lily was in her new room, a space that Stella had decorated especially for her, with drawings of birds on the walls and a bed with flowered sheets, when Valentine came to say goodnight. "Dad," she said, "can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you still get sad sometimes, thinking about what Oswald did?" Valentine sat on the edge of the bed. "Sometimes, yes. But do you know what helps me?" "What?" "Remembering that, if it weren't for everything that happened, we might never have found you. And you're the best gift our family has ever received." Lily smiled, hugging the teddy bear she had received from Chris. "Dad, do you think other children who live on the streets will find families too?" "I hope so. And who knows? Maybe we can help with that." "How?" "Maybe we can help other orphans find homes." "What do you think?" Lily's eyes sparkled. "It would be like planting seeds of love, exactly like planting seeds of love. Then I want to help. Every child deserves to have a family that loves them." Valentine kissed his daughter's forehead and turned off the light. "Good night, Lily Craig." "Good night, Dad. I love you. I love you too, little one." As Lily fell asleep in her warm and safe bed, surrounded by the love of her new family, a final transformation was just beginning, the transformation of an entire town, inspired by the courage of a girl who had proven that love always conquers hate. A year after the events that changed their lives forever, the Craig family organized a special party in their backyard. It wasn't an ordinary birthday, but a celebration that Lily had suggested, Second Chances Day. "Dad, how many people are coming?" Lily asked, now 5 years old, helping Valentine hang colorful flags on the tree in the backyard. "Many, little one. All the people who helped us when we needed it most." The idea for the party had been born when Lily, who now attended school and was learning to read, discovered that other children had also lost their families. She had convinced her parents to create a project to help orphans in the area find loving homes. "And will Oswald be able to come?" she asked, with the innocence that still characterized her. Valentine stopped hanging the flags. Oswald was serving his sentence, but had corresponded with them a few times. His letters showed a remorseful man undergoing therapy and trying to understand the mistakes he had made. "No, Lily, he still can't leave where he is. But he sent a letter for you." "Really? What did he say?" "He said he's proud of the brave girl who saved an entire family, and that he hopes one day he can ask for forgiveness in person." Lily thought about it as she held one end of the flag for her father to hang. "Dad, when he gets out, can we invite him for dinner?" The question surprised Valentine. "Why?" "Because Grandma Delia always said that everyone deserves to sit at a table where they're welcome at least once in their life." The wisdom of that little girl never ceased to impress him. "If your mother agrees, yes." "She'll agree. Mom has a good heart like you." The first guests began to arrive around 3 in the afternoon. Mrs. Peterson was the first, bringing a huge tray of homemade cookies and a smile that lit up the entire backyard. "Lily, my dear," she said, hugging the girl, "how you've grown. I have, Mrs. Peterson. I can already read small words. That's wonderful. And what else have you learned?" "I've learned that family isn't just who has the same blood. It's who chooses to stay together and take care of each other." Mrs. Peterson looked at Valentine and Stella with tears in her eyes. "This girl is going to change the world one day." Soon, Chris and Patty arrived, bringing 3 children they had met through the adoption project the family had created. They were siblings, 2 boys and a girl, who had recently lost their parents and were being temporarily cared for by Mrs. Peterson while they looked for a permanent family. "Lily," Patty said, "these are John, Peter, and Mary. They are 7, 5, and 4 years old." Lily approached the shy children with the naturalness of someone who had gone through the same situation. "Hi," she said softly. "Do you want to see my room? I have books with pretty pictures." The children hesitated, but Lily's sincerity eventually won them over. Soon they were following her into the house, talking animatedly about drawings and stories. "She has a special gift with children who have suffered," observed Dr. Bennett, who had arrived with his wife. "It's like she recognizes their pain." "It's because she remembers what it was like to be alone," Stella said. "And she never wants other children to feel that way." The party grew throughout the afternoon. Joaquin from the pharmacy arrived with his family, Martha brought her children, and even the officer who had handled the case appeared to greet Lily. "How's our little detective?" he joked. "Good," Lily replied, "and now I'm helping other children find families." "I heard. What a beautiful project you created." During the party, something happened that no one expected. A young couple, who had heard about the project through friends, approached Valentine and Stella. "Sorry to interrupt," the woman said, "but we heard that you help children find families. We would really like to adopt siblings." Valentine and Stella looked at each other. "What a coincidence," Stella said. "There are 3 siblings here today who need a family." What followed was magical. John, Peter, and Mary, initially shy, gradually warmed up to the young couple. They discovered common interests, laughed together, and when it was time to say goodbye, the children asked if they could visit them again. "Not just visit," the man said, with tears in his eyes. "If you want, you can come live with us." Lily watched the whole scene with satisfaction. She had helped 3 children find what she herself had found, a family that chose them and loved them. "Dad," she said, pulling on Valentine's pants, "it works just like you said. When we plant seeds of love, more families are born." "Exactly, little one." As the afternoon turned into evening, the guests began to say goodbye. But before leaving, Mrs. Peterson asked to make a toast. "I want to make a toast," she said, raising her glass of juice, "to the bravest girl in upstate New York." "To Lily!" everyone shouted. "No," Lily said, shaking her head. "I want to make a different toast." She picked up her little glass and stood on a chair to get taller. "I want to make a toast to the people who don't give up on loving, even when it's difficult, and to the people who help other people when they're sad. To kindness," someone said. "To second chances," said another. "To family," Valentine completed. Everyone toasted, and for a moment the backyard of the Craig's house was illuminated not only by the lights of the party, but by the warmth of dozens of hearts united by love and hope. Later, when everyone had left and the family was clearing up the last remnants of the party, Lily sat on the porch with her parents. "Mom, Dad," she said, "can I tell you a secret?" "Yes," they both said at the same time. "Sometimes I still dream about Grandma Delia." "And what does she say in the dreams?" Stella asked. "She says she's proud of me, and that you are the family she always asked me to find." Valentine hugged his daughter. "And we always thank her for teaching you to have such a good heart. Dad, do you think our story is over?" "Our story, Lily? I think it's just beginning." Lily smiled, looking at the stars that shone over upstate New York. Somewhere in the town, John, Peter, and Mary were getting to know their new home. Elsewhere, Oswald was writing a letter asking for forgiveness and promising to be better. And there on the porch, a family united by destiny and strengthened by love planned ways to help more children find happiness. "You know what's the best part of everything?" Lily said. "What?" Valentine and Stella asked. "That when we choose to love, love grows and spreads to other people. Like ripples on a lake." She was right. The courage of a 4-year-old girl had created ripples that spread throughout the town, touching hearts, saving families, and proving that, even in the darkest moments, there is always hope for those who believe in the power of love. And as the Craig family prepared to sleep that special night, the echo of Lily's new song still floated in the air. "Little bird landed, landed, where there is much love, planted, planted, seeds in the heart." It was a song of hope, a melody of second chances, a symphony of love that would continue to echo through upstate New York for many years. reminding everyone that some of the greatest victories are born from the moments of greatest pain, and that true love always finds a way to blossom.